Imagine turning a simple glass bottle into a timeless, shabby chic treasure using a napkin, some air-dry clay, and a bit of paint. Today, I'll take you step by step through a dreamy transformation that feels like a little piece of vintage magic. Hello, my crafty friends. I'm Donna from Mason Creations, etc., and welcome to my channel. This project is full of surprises, and I promise you won't believe how easy it is. So let's make a mess, my friends. The first thing I'm doing is wiping this piece with an alcohol wipe. This will remove any dirt, debris, or fingerprints. You want a nice clean surface to start off with. I'm going to brush on Polyvine's multi-surface lacquer in a dead flat finish. I'm using the dead flat finish because I want to remove the shine. It's specially formulated to create a durable bond on slick, non-porous surfaces such as plastic, glass, ceramic, and metal. That bond acts as a gripping layer that allows paints, decoupage papers, or transfers to stick more effectively. Without it, top layers may chip, scratch, or peel. For best results, I'm going to let this dry overnight. Notice that the glass isn't clear any longer. The multi-surface lacquer removed the shine, which gives the glass a frosted appearance. If you plan on having a section that you want to see through, make sure to avoid the lacquer in that area. Removing the shine is what's needed to give your paint good adhesion. I'm going to give this beautiful bottle a coat of white paint using Dixie Belle chalk paint and the color cotton, which is white. I'm going to be doing some decoupage, so I need a white background. Make sure you always paint white or a very light off-white wherever you're going to decoupage rice paper or a napkin. White allows the colors in your images to look more vibrant. Dark colors will make your images look dark and muddy. I gave my bottle 2 coats of paint because I'm using a napkin and they are sheer, so I wanted to make sure I had a good opaque layer of paint. I'll let this dry for about 30 minutes. This and all the products you're going to see me use today came from decoupagenapkins.com, my wonderful sponsors. I traced the bottle and made a template so I could cut the napkin to fit the bottle. This napkin is filled with light pink roses that are so beautiful. I'll be doing some air dry clay roses a little later, and I'll be painting them to match the roses in the napkin. Stick around and I'll show you exactly how to do it. My crafty friend Shirley from Rhode Island told me she'd love to see a shabby chic bottle with pale colors of pink, green, and blue. Here you go, Shirley. This video is for you. This napkin is 3-ply, so I'm removing the 2 bottom layers. I'm only going to work with the top layer that has the print on it. The bottle is slightly rounded, so I'm putting a few slits at the top side portion of the napkins. The slits will overlap each other, causing the napkin to lay nice and flat. I'm going to use Polyvine Heavy Duty Wood Varnish in a satin finish as my decoupage glue today. I'm going to be decoupaging a napkin, and for some reason this works best for napkins. I normally use decorator's varnish for my decoupage glue, but for napkins I choose this formula. There's something about it that greatly reduces wrinkles and bubbles. I brushed a little bit on the bottle and then laid my napkin in place. Then very delicately brushed more varnish over the napkin, pressing it down and paying special attention to the edges. I cut a Ziploc bag and sprayed it with some water. I'm pressing that over where I just decoupaged my napkin using a dry folded up paper towel. This will allow you to put a little bit of pressure without damaging the napkin. Don't do this without misting your plastic with water first, or you risk damaging your napkin. If there are any tiny wrinkles or bubbles, this will press out most of them. As the napkin dries, it will shrink, pulling out any other small wrinkles. The end result is almost no wrinkles. You may have a few tiny ones, but that's it. I'm letting this dry for several hours, and then I'll add the napkin to the other side of the bottle. I'm using my favorite, Doss clay, to make some embellishments for this project. Doss clay is so easy to work with, Dries quickly and has very little shrinkage or cracking when dry. It's perfect for making molded pieces. After pressing the clay into the molds, I'm scraping off the excess with my palette knife and then smoothing the clay out with some water. Then I'll put them in the freezer for 20 minutes. Freezing the clay makes it rigid so they just pop out of the mold easily. No tiny little limbs will break off. I'm making these scrolls to outline the heart shape of the bottle and adding some roses and leaves as well. Fresh out of the freezer, watch how easily these just pop out of the molds. No delicate little pieces will break off. They are frozen solid, so I'll need to let them thaw for a few minutes, but not in the mold. Make sure you remove them from the mold right away as soon as you take them out of the freezer. While my clay is thawing, I take some time to smooth out the edges and remove any little pieces of clay that don't belong. Where are you all watching from, my crafty friends? Let me know in the comments. I just love to see what cities and countries all my friends are watching from. I'm filming from sunny Las Vegas, Nevada in the United States. I'm going to use Aleene's tacky glue to add my molded clay to my piece. I need to add this while the clay is still wet so it'll conform to the piece as it dries. This is the best glue I've found for attaching wet clay. If any glue seeps out from under the clay, I'm removing it right away with a clean, damp brush. I'm also pressing down all the edges of the clay very delicately to make sure they're all connecting with the piece. These scrolls don't bend the way I want them to, but since the clay is still wet, I can form them in any direction I want. If you want to see an in-depth video on how to work with air dry clay, click the banner in the top right corner of your screen. I'll also leave you a link for that video in my description box below. I'm gluing the little piece of the scroll I cut off at the top in the center. I let this clay scrolls dry before turning it over and adding them to the other side to avoid smashing the fresh clay. Both sides are done and dry, so I'm adding some roses and leaves now, as well as some decorative trim on the neck of the bottle. I'm using a Q-tip to push down some of the edges of the roses. The cotton tip is soft and doesn't make marks in the clay. Well, unless you push really hard. Just do it delicately. I'm using some really tiny roses as fill-in where there are empty spots. DecoupageNapkins.com has such a great selection of napkins that you can purchase one at a time. They carry many other craft supplies such as rice paper, paint, clay, molds, and a great selection of polyvine products. Over 9,000 products and growing. They are wonderful to work with and will send your order out fast. You'll receive free shipping on orders over $75 and special bonus points for orders over $100. Subscribe to their newsletter by entering your email address, and you'll receive 10% off your next order. They are truly your one-stop shop for craft supplies. Make sure you check them out. I'll be leaving links for all the products I use in my description box below, as well as more information on the previously mentioned promotions. Please note that any of these promotions are subject to future changes. I'll let this side of the bottle dry before doing the other side to prevent anything from happening to the clay work I just did. The clay is dry and I can do the other side now. I'm making sure to glue all the roses and leaves in the exact same placement as the other side. I don't like to do things symmetrical, but in this case I have to. If I don't, the bottle will appear unbalanced looking at it from the front and back. At least the large roses. The smaller fill-in tiny roses won't matter. I'm going to let all of this clay work dry overnight and start painting in the morning. Before I start painting, I'm giving the napkin on both sides a coat of Polyvine Heavy Duty Wood Varnish in a satin finish. This will protect it from any painting mishaps. Because it's a satin finish, any paint will just wipe right off. I'll let that dry for 1 hour and then let the painting begin. I'm starting off using Dixie Belle chalk paint in the color Magnolia to paint all the scrolls and any of the background between the roses and leaves. I really like this color, and I guess you've been seeing me use it a lot. It's just the prettiest warm white. And of course, Dixie Belle chalk paint is just a fabulous paint. It goes on smooth and creamy, unlike other chalk paints. I test all the products that I recommend in my videos. I won't recommend anything that I haven't used myself and prefer. If I'm recommending it, you can bet it's a great product. Each product will be listed in my description box below and will have a blue link to make it easy for you to find. Any of the links I provide are safe for you to click on. The turquoise item that you're seeing me use is called a cup cradle. It's made from silicone and I rely on it a lot. I use this anytime I'm working on something round. It keeps my piece from rolling away from me. I get a lot of people asking me what it is. There'll be a link in my description box below, just in case you want to check it out. I'm going to paint all the roses in this really pale pink that I mixed to match the color in the napkin. And I am so sorry, my friends, not sure what happened, but I missed the footage of me mixing the paint. I used Pentart paint in the color Rose, along with some of the Magnolia until it was the same shade as in the napkin. The roses in the napkin have several different colors in them. I'll be duplicating those colors. Looking at the napkin and analyzing the colors, I'm seeing pale pink, fuchsia, brown, a creamy magnolia color, and white tips on the petals. So stick around to see how those clay roses turn out. They end up duplicating the napkin just about perfectly. I'm going to mix a paint for the leaves. I want them to be very pale as well. I'm using Pentart paint in the color Country Green, along with the Magnolia paint. I don't have any green that I'm matching it to, but I like this color. It goes well with the pink and the roses. Using the Magnolia paint to mix with both of them kept the tone the same. If you're enjoying this video, please let me know by hitting that like button. And why not share this with a friend? Thanks for doing that. You won't want to miss any of the new projects coming up, so don't forget to subscribe. Looking at the front bottom of the bottle, it just looked too symmetrical. Exactly the same on both sides. I added 2 more leaves on both front and back of the bottle to correct that wonky look. Much better, and now I'll let that dry so I can paint them. I'm going to be doing some interesting paint techniques as well as some antiquing, and I need a shiny surface for that. I'm giving all the scrolls, roses, and leaves a coat of my satin varnish. I'll let that dry for an hour. Okay, let's start making these roses look like the napkin. If you look closely at the roses on the napkin, the centers are a dark reddish fuchsia. I'm mixing together the color royal fuchsia and red to get the color correct. I put a little more of the fuchsia than the red, then some glazing medium. This keeps your paint from drying quickly, which gives you a longer working time. I also gave it a little spritz of water. I like my antiquing mediums a little runny. I put a couple drops just in the center of the roses, then wiped it off the surface with a soft dry cloth. It stays in the spaces between the flower petals but wipes right off the surface because of the satin varnish. If there wasn't any varnish, the antique would grab onto the paint and not wipe off at all. I gave it a spritz of water to make it run between the petals a little more, and then wiped again. I did this with all the roses. But this isn't it. Stay tuned. There are going to be more layers that make this match the napkin roses. I'm using the magnolia paint to do some dry brushing over all the rose petals. There's some creamy white in the napkin roses. I'm putting just the tip of my brush in the paint and wiping most of it off, then wiping it on a paper towel. For dry brushing, you want the brush literally almost dry. Then I'm lightly wiping it over the roses. It won't go deep into the centers between the petals. It'll just grab onto the surface. This gives them a lighter, almost misty appearance. A couple more steps to go. I'm mixing Pentart Country Blue and Dark Blue with some glazing medium and a little water. I'm making an antique for the leaves. I want to add a little bit of a blue tone to them. I'm adding this exactly the same way that I added to the pink roses. I'm brushing it on and then wiping it off with a soft dry cloth. And this turned out a little bluer than I wanted, so I'll have to do some color correction. To correct the blue, I'm using my light green paint to dry brush over the leaves. This will tone down the blue a little. It worked perfectly. I like the color now. I'm sure you've noticed that I use a lot of Pentart paint. This paint is great and has the most wonderful coverage. I almost never need a second coat. Usually just one coat covers perfectly. Even their metallic colors. After the paint dried, I gave all the roses and leaves a coat of varnish and let that dry for an hour before moving on. I'm mixing some glazing medium with Pentart paint in the color light brown for an antiquing medium. I used about a teaspoon of glaze and just a tiny bit of paint. This is going to give everything an antique vintage look. I'm brushing it on all the scrolls, leaves, and roses, making sure it gets into all the little nooks and crannies between all those rose petals. Then I'm wiping it off with a soft dry cloth, and again, it'll stay in all those nooks and crannies and wipe off the surface because of the varnish. Antiquing takes your project from flat to completely 3D by adding so much depth and dimension. I used a very warm brown to match the warm brown in the napkin. I'm making sure to avoid the decoupage napkin area. That's going to get a different antiquing technique. Now I'm going to use the white Dixie Belle chalk paint to lighten and brighten all the scrolls, roses, and leaves. The roses in the napkin have very light edges, so this is the last layer of duplicating that beautiful napkin. I'm using the dry brushing technique to lightly catch all the edges and tops of all these embellishments. I had to do the roses to match the napkin, so I followed suit with the leaves and scrolls. This way, everything will match. It's July. Who is ready for some Christmas projects? I'm going to start rolling out some Christmas projects and tree ornaments. I'm going to start off by making some projects that were requested last year, but couldn't complete because I ran out of time. If you have anything you'd like to see this year, let me know. I love planning projects around your requests. Just please be patient. I get a lot of requests and I get to them as quickly as I can. After the paint dried, I gave my scrolls, roses, and leaves 2 coats of Polyvine Heavy Duty Wood Varnish in a satin finish, waiting an hour dry time between coats. 2 or 3 coats of this gives you a beautiful shine that's moisture and high heat resistant, as well as high chemical resistant, high stain resistant, high abrasion resistant, and food safe. This works wonderful on any painted or decoupage surface or shiny surface that has been coated with Polyvine multi-surface lacquer. I let that dry for an hour between each coat and an hour after the final coat. I've had a few people ask me if this varnish has a strong smell. No, it does not. It's water-based, so there are no harmful fumes at all. On the trim around the neck of the bottle, there are little round raised areas. I'm dotting each one of them with Pentart's silver paint. Now it's time to make the napkin area look like aged porcelain. I'm using Pentart Fine Line Crackle System. There are 2 components and I'm brushing on component number 1. This goes on white but will dry clear. When it's completely clear, it's time for component 2. Now I'm going to brush on component number 2. This step is an amber color. Use thin, even strokes. If it's on too thick in one area or there's a drip, it will show when it's dry. Once this step is dry in a couple of hours, you'll see all the cracks. I'm going to accent all those fine cracks using Pentart Antique Paste in the color Umber. I'm using a brush to smear it all over the napkin area and right up into where the scrolls meet the napkin. It's okay if some of this gets on the scrolls. It'll wipe right off. After I have the napkin area covered, I'm wiping off the excess with a dry, soft cloth. It'll wipe off the surface, but it'll remain in all the fine cracks as well as the edge where the scrolls meet the napkin. Don't use anything wet to do this or it will destroy your crackle finish. This will need to be sealed with a solvent-based gloss varnish. I'm using Winsor & Newton. I love the results you get from this brand. It's super shiny and adds to that porcelain appearance. This dries in about an hour. You won't need another coat. Since this and the antique paste are solvent-based, you'll need to clean your brushes with mineral spirits. Everything else I've used today can be cleaned with soap and water. I painted a portion of the cork with magnolia, and I made some of the clay trim just like the bottle, as well as a beautiful clay rose. After the clay dried, I painted it to match everything I did on the bottle. I used some beautiful pink organza ribbon to make a bow for the neck of the bottle. Don't forget, all of the wonderful products I'm using today can be found at my favorite place for craft supplies, decoupagenapkins.com, and I'll leave you links in my description box below. I've added a link to a video that I think you may enjoy. Click the picture on the right to be taken directly to that video. I'm so happy you were here with me today, and thanks so much for watching. I can't wait to see you all next week. I'm working on a new project with you in mind. You can subscribe by clicking my picture in the top right corner.